in the book, Stephen Covey talks about this example of you attending a funeral, and like he sets it all up, and then you are the one that's actually in the casket. And he talks about writing your eulogy today. Who would speak number one at your funeral? Would it be your kids? Would it be your spouse? Would it be your friends? And what do you want them to say about your life? This is Betterwealth with Caleb Williams. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Betterwealth podcast. I'm here with Right Hand Dan. In today's Betterwealth breakdown, we're going to talk about the 7 habits of highly effective people. This book is one of my favorites, and it was actually cool because we have a book club with our team, and multiple people on our team were like, this is a book that we want to read every year.
Yep.
And what's cool is this is not the first time that I read this book. This is actually the third time. I first read this book when I was getting mentored by John Noel. I have an episode with him. He's had a tremendous impact on my life, very successful, sold like 2 companies, or his last company to Warren Buffett, is very, very wealthy. And he had everyone on his team go through the 7 habits. And I would say this, like, regardless of where you're at in life, marriage, you want to be a better parent, you want to be a better business owner, just better human being. Man, this is up there on the all-time reads. And so I'm hoping to talk about the 7 habits and overall, what were the big concepts that you got from reading this book?
Well, first, actually, I'm going to pull a U and go off script here and say, I think what I want to do is provide a link, betterwealth.com/book club.
Okay,
and
here we go.
I want you all, like, as the community, I want you to know the books that we're reading as a team, because I think that's really important. And for a little more context, we as a team every month are listening to a new book, or are reading or listening to whatever form we like to consume books as a team, and then we have a dialogue about that. And so I'm going to give you the opportunity to go to betterwealth.com/book club, and I'm going to give you the list of books that we're reading right now. Maybe even we'll send the recordings of our discussions.
I was going to pull at you and say, why don't we just make it a live
I was thinking about that.
Q&A.
Maybe we do that too. But as far as, this book, as much like you alluded to, our team really responded well to this. It was something that was very impactful. And I think as you'll see with our book list, we're kind of building up towards real growth. We're going to be looking at Amazon later in the year. Yep. We already read like Good to Great, and last month was The Power of Habit, now the 7 habits. And overarchingly, it goes, what's interesting is a lot of our core values are really in this book.
Totally.
And I think, much like you said, regardless of where you are in life, you can find amazing value in this book. And so there's so many things. I think it's one of those books where you have to go back to it.
Yes.
Because it's so powerful. And so I really just want to dive into the 7 habits.
Yep. I love it.
So I'm going to read through them first, and then we'll go by each of them and kind of dive into them. So the 7 are: number 1, be proactive. Number 2, begin with the end in mind. Number 3, put first things first. Number 4, think win-win. Number 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. Number 6, synergize. And number 7, sharpen the saw. So first, Caleb, this is probably your favorite, is be proactive.
Well, it definitely is my love language. For those of you that know me, it drives me absolutely nuts to manage, to lead, to be around people that are not proactive. It was part of the reason I was brought up this way. My parents were very, very hard on me, and it rubbed off in a good way. I guess I wasn't rebellious. And I just want to seek to look for things that could be better. And that is, we wouldn't be talking to you right now because there's a lot of areas in my life that I had to be proactive. And because I was proactive, it wasn't perfect, but because I was proactive, it got me to where I am, and so I'm definitely drawn to that. So yes, it's my love language, and I feel like it's just like start looking for areas, stop being a victim, and start looking for areas that you can improve.
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking, is there a way, or is there a reason that being proactive would be a bad thing? And I guess really only if you make a poor decision while being proactive, but being proactive is an amazing thing. I think of like school projects. How many people were proactive in a school project? Or just school in general, procrastination is rampant, and then you race to get something done, and you're not proactive in that. But the reverse is true. Like when you work with a group of people who are proactive, it's a lot of fun.
Right. The definition of proactive on Google is a person, policy, or action. So a person creating or controlling a situation by causing something to happen rather than responding to it after it happened. So again, you can be proactive as it relates to your money, your relationship, your health, your job. In every area, are you going to be reactive, just wait for something to come to you, or are you going to be proactive? And so, yeah, love that. I think there's a reason it's number one, because you have to be somewhat proactive to read. You have to be proactive to have an open mind. And so, love that the 7 Habits started with that.
Yeah, number 2, begin with the end in mind. This one is very interesting to me because I was just reading about Jeff Bezos, and he was talking about how he's really big on, he personally thinks about his end of life first. Yep. And then what does that look like coming backwards? Because he doesn't want to have any regrets. And I think that's something very powerful. Yep. Of let's think long term. And people, I think a lot of people don't think long term enough because they can barely think to Friday. And so, thinking, what does it look like when I'm 85 years old and I look back on my life?
Yep.
And make the decisions today to make sure that I enjoy or am able to look back fondly on my life.
In the book, Stephen Covey talks about this example of you attending a funeral, and like he sets it all up, and then you are the one that's actually in the casket. And he talks about writing your eulogy today. The people, who would speak number one at your funeral? Would it be your kids? Would it be your spouse? Would it be your friends? And what do you want them to say about your life? And then his whole example is, and it's a beautiful way to think about this, is like live your life for the eulogy. And I have mixed emotions about that, but overall, I think that's super solid because you don't want to live your life with regret. It's interesting, and it's because of books like this. I think about dying not in a bad way, but I think about dying all the time because it is like the ultimate test is, should I be doing this? Well, I'm going to die someday, so in 100 years, this doesn't matter. So will this decision matter in 100 years? And if it's yes, then I'm going to do it, and I'm not going to worry about what someone else is going to say because I know that there's so much more than just me.
Well, and that ties into your idea of one life.
Yes, 100%.
So the third one is put first things first. And Stephen Covey had a 4-quadrant idea.
And he had a 4-quadrant, and we don't usually do any edits on the show, but we did do edits because I tried to wing it. It didn't end up so well, and so we actually opened the book. Crazy concept.
We have the book, and the 4 quadrants are urgent and important, not urgent and important, urgent and not important, and not urgent and not important.
Okay, so in other words, the third habit is taking first things first. So a highly effective person does important things and doesn't get caught into reacting. Okay, it goes back to being proactive. And so when we think about this concept of how many things out there are urgent and not important that we end up doing all the time, I would say a lot of people live in this area. It's one of the things that I'm most working on. I want to cut out everything that's urgent that is literally not important and get really clear on what's important and what important activities that I need to do in my life. And then obviously the urgent and important, that's because it's important, you got to get that done. But it's how do you design your life where you're not constantly living in the urgency, but you're living in the important elements. And that's where you go back to our principle. Like, you got to have clarity on what's important to begin with, to even know how to fill out these 4 quadrants.
Right, and it goes back to what's important to you. And first things first for me is like, okay, I want to work out. I want to be healthy, and well, what's first is I need to have that discipline in my schedule, in my time, in my calendar to have that. And then there's so many things that come into that, of whether it's eating healthy or like building those things. But what comes first? And a lot of times it's that discipline and consistency.
Right.
But first having clarity on what is important, what isn't important, what's urgent, what's not urgent.
Right.
So another very, very important habit. The fourth one is think win-win. Now, this applies in almost everything, whether it's Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, thinking win-win in a friendship, in a partnership, in a romantic relationship, in really anything that involves somebody else.
Right.
Why wouldn't you want to think win-win?
And it's interesting because I have moments where I'm like, I disagree with this, because it's like, well, no, in a negotiation, you would want to win. Like, I'm very competitive, like, and so I don't necessarily think win-win works when you're competing on a field. But what Stephen Covey talks about is, even in an employee relationship, even in like a partnership, you want to make sure that the other party is winning, is doing well, because over time, it goes back to what I talk about, opportunity cost, long-term and short-term. You might win in the short term, but if you're playing a lifetime game, you will not win in the end if you are trying to take advantage of people, and if you're not seeking to find that win-win. And so on one hand, for people maybe like myself that fall into this very competitive, like wanting to maximize, I need to ask questions. Wait a second. Is this a win for you? What's really important to you? I'm not going to move forward if this doesn't better you off. And when it comes to helping people with money, when it comes to working with people, there's a lot of people that I've like said, this is not right for you, because I know this is what you think, but I would not be right in having you do this deal. And I would say there's a reason why we are growing our company, is I really do believe that we live this habit out. On the flip side, there are people getting taken advantage, and they're like, oh, like they're truly losing and they're becoming bitter. You see this a lot in relationships, where it's like, okay, stuff it under the rug, stuff it under the rug, stuff it under the rug. And in the end, it ends up not being a super healthy, great relationship.
Well, this podcast is an example of a win-win. It's a win because you may get some knowledge nuggets here, and it's a win if you listen, share, like, subscribe, comment.
I love that example. So yes, create a win-win scenario. I'm like giving, and I'm asking you to share the podcast, give this a review, because we are just trying to get this message out, and the best way is through people helping us share the message. So love that, Tia.
Win-win. All right, number 5. This one is awesome, and it's seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Probably my favorite habit. This is relationship building 101. It's Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People 101. And we were actually joking, but not, I mean, tell me if you think we should do this. We were talking about our first call when people come in. We've had so many names. What if we called it the Seek to Understand call? Because that's really if you 101 on coaching, on Betterwealth coaches, if you're not a part of our community, it's like, we want to seek to understand what you actually want, and we want to serve you. And I feel like there's so many opportunities to react in life, whether it's in a coaching relationship, whether it's a regular relationship, whether it's a leadership relationship. And it's like, what if we took a step back and sought to understand? We're in one of the most politically charged times in our life. And I feel like people say this every 4 years. But what if both sides took a humble pill and sought first to understand what their colleagues that they maybe disagree, sought first to understand why that's important to them, and then understand that when you do that, the other party wants to listen to you. And so, again, this is something that I learned at a young age, and I think there's a reason why I have a lot of great friendships, is I really, really try to work on this and embody this, and really I want people to be understood when they listen to me or when they talk to me.
Yeah, well, and I had the exact opposite approach when I first started learning about what it is that we teach. And I always joke now, when we first started traveling a lot and somebody sat next to me, I did not seek to understand anything. I just wanted them to understand me. And I would fire hose them with information and just keep on going. They tell me that they have a 401k. I tell them every reason why the 401k is the worst thing in the world. And I never took a moment to step back and understand, well, why are they doing that in the first place?
Right.
And then having them understand my positioning. It was all just pouring it all onto them. And now over time, it's been the complete reverse of like, I truly do want to know where you're coming from. I want to know why you think the way that you do. And then I want you to understand the way that we think and why we think the way we think. But first, it's really getting that understanding of them. And it goes back to like, yeah, we have thought about turning that into the first call, because we truly we want to gain that clarity. We want to understand where you're coming from, and then we want to move on from there. So yeah, another very powerful habit. The 6th one is synergize. And there's some relator to the previous one with that of like, I wasn't seeking synergy. I was just seeking to get my point across.
Yeah, and I think this has a lot to do with a work environment. And to be quite frank, this was out of the 7 habits, the one that impacted me the least as it relates to the content. But it's just like you want to be in a good relationship, in an environment that you can be synergistic, that I don't need to be controlling you, that we can really feed off each other. And so that's kind of what I got. I don't know if you got anything from it.
For me, I think that's why I'm excited about our community, because we find that synergy in the commonality of the way that we think. And so that's the beauty of a community, is why do you join one? Well, because people think the way that you do, and you find synergy in that. And so as we work towards impacting 1 million people in the next 5 years, it takes that synergy of our community to have the like-mindedness and be willingness to share and bring more people to feel that synergy and into that synergy. That's, for me, that's what I got out of it, is the excitement of that bond and that community that we're building.
And it really is, 2 is greater than 1. And so to create that environment where you can get a lot more done because you're working together.
Yep.
All right, and the 7th one is Sharpen the Saw, and this one was really, really great. It's something that I think you do an incredible job with, just reading the book and reading books, being consistent, taking notes. But it's this concept of making sure that you can continue to sharpen your mind and continue to do personal development and continue to pour into yourself and in your relationships to make sure that you can continue to live an effective life. You want to share the story that he gives about cutting down the trees?
Well, see, I actually want to share a story from Elon Musk.
All right, do it.
And Elon says that most people have the ability to learn anything, but they sell themselves short. And we see this a lot in corporate America, of you learn a skill, you do a job, and then you become complacent, and you no longer continue to innovate and sharpen the saw and learn. And we talked about, how do you earn more income? Well, maybe go back and get a certification, maybe go get a different degree or enhanced degree. And the idea of constantly going back, especially now technology is moving so fast. The sharpening the saw is so many different things, like reading a book, being able to get somebody's entire life's work within, let's say, 300 pages.
Yep.
How powerful is that? And then continuing to go back. We started this podcast by saying that we're going to go back and use this book as an example, and anybody else that joins the team, this is going to be a foundational book.
So betterwealth.com/book
club.
Betterwealth.com/book club. We don't know exactly how this is going to look, but it's going to be epic. So go and sign up. And just really, going back to this whole concept of the 7 habits of highly effective people, this was by far one of the best books that I've ever read, and I would encourage you to read it. If you have read it, please email me at caleb@betterwealth.com. You can email Dan at dan@betterwealth.com. We would love to hear from you. Love to hear what concepts you've taken out or big ideas that you've gotten from reading books, especially the book of the month. And so with that, thank you for being a part of our community and helping us share the message. Go out and live a very intentional life. Thank you so much for listening to the Betterwealth podcast. It would mean the world to me if you could hit subscribe, leave a review, and share this with the people that you know and love.